we want to welcome you today to this particular breakout on the presenter. And in this breakout, we'll be covering the following concepts about the introduction and the PowerPoint, the facilitator skills, things of this sort. And actually, the PowerPoint will obtain the scripts. So, I mean, you can take notes now, but as we go through the first 10 slides, per se, let's say, they will have scripts that you will have that your director can, or your district chair will be able to share with you. But before we begin, I just want to note that the PowerPoint, that the presenter role can be obtained from the district chair, who will download it from the IVFC website. Each district should decide how the PowerPoint will be handled. If in person, the PowerPoint can be stored on a thumb drive to be kept with the other equipment. Now, Tom is going to, I'm blessed to have Tom Ripida from District 6510 in Illinois to join me today in our presentation. So Tom's going to lead us through like the introduction of your team through the actual vision event itself. Tom?
Thank you very much, Glenn. So after the visitation team has introduced themselves and the lead reflects on the club statistics and the lead hands it over to the presenter. The presenter starts with having everyone introduce themselves. You ask them to give their name, their number of years that they've been in Rotary, and their position in the club, such as treasurer or a member. You either go around the room in person, or you call on each by first name virtually to unmute and respond. Next, Glenn will cover the PowerPoint.
Thank you, Tom. The PowerPoint presentation provides a context by which the visioning was structured. It explains the important aspects that are important in creating a healthy and vibrant club, as well as the outcomes that a club can expect. The PowerPoint is presented in both an in-person and virtual type platform. Let's review each slide for you to understand the purpose of the PowerPoint. Before we start, raise your hand in either the participant or reaction function if you can recite Rotary International's vision statement. Anybody recite that? Any raised hands there, Tom?
I see no volunteers.
Okay, all right. Well, let's see. Well, each one of us as members of the visioning facilitation team need to know that the statement by heart. And here it is in PowerPoint, shown on slide 5. The presenter at that time would say that the structure of visioning starts with the Rotary International visioning statement, which reads, "Together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves." You will also be creating your own vision statement through the visioning process. So get across the point that Rotary has a vision, and now the club, by going through this process, will also have a vision. The presenter then would state that the framework of the visioning experience aligns with the Rotary International Action Plan. There are 4 strategic priorities that compose the action plan, in no particular order: to increase our impact, to expand our reach, to enhance participant engagement, to increase our ability to adapt. Your writing exercise took you through this framework and then added the fundraiser and the foundations. Now, please raise your hand in either the participant or reaction function to answer this question. What makes Rotary's action plan important to share with your club? Any raised hands?
We got Joan's got her hand up.
Okay, Joan, let's see. If you can unmute yourself, what would be that?
Well, I just feel like it provides like you said, a framework. It gives a model or something for us to use to cover all the areas we need to cover.
Excellent. No, thank you. We want them to be exposed to the 4 priorities so that when the team is extracting, the members will begin to understand that they can easily apply Rotary's action plan within their club. The presenter then would show that when strategic planners are working with any organization, they ask 5 planning questions. You are the Rotary Club of, let's say, River City. The Rotary Visioning questionnaire you filled out and the club profile your president filled out helped us answer the first 2 questions. Who are we and where are we? Today, we're going to work on the 3rd question. Where do we want to be? Once you come to a consensus of your vision, it will become the foundation to answer the next question. You will develop goals and action steps. Like any good plan, you'll have measurements and time frames so you know when you have succeeded. This slide gets them in mindset to look into the future and how planning is a process that starts with visioning, yet continues after the visioning event is over. So raise your hand in either the participant or action function if you can tell me what new documents developed recently answers the 4th planning question. How will we get there? Does anybody want to respond to that? What 2 items that were mentioned?
Joan has her hand up, but I don't know if that's left over from last time.
Okay, right. All right.
You can lower your hand. There you go. Thank you.
There we go. Well, the answer would be the master plan and the action plan. So now raise your hand if you know which new document developed recently answers the 5th planning question. How will we know that we have arrived? Any other hands there, Tom?
And I see nothing in the chat either.
Okay. All right. Well, it would be the action plan. At the very bottom, it asks to predict the outcomes. So you will know when you have succeeded in accomplishing your goal. So with a thumbs up, though, in the reaction function or just in the screen, tell me if your own club has a multi-year plan. How about some clubs out there that have already established multi-year plans? All right, see a few. Well, the next slide is going to show why the multi-year plan is so important. And I'm going to let Tom kind of lead us through the aspects of this slide. Tom?
Thank you very much, Glenn. So the presenter says, the writing exercise that you filled out encourages you to put yourselves 3 years into the future and to look back at what you've accomplished. By having each individual do this exercise, it allows all of you to hear where you may have some common purpose and where someone may see some areas that the club can do things in new ways. The only way a leader in a club can successfully take the club to where they want to go is to have that input and agreement from the members. In addition, if the club has a plan, it should make it a lot easier for future leaders to step into roles of leadership. They become the stewards of the plan that the club has created. The beauty of the writing exercise is that it asks you to look at areas that well-balanced Rotary clubs focus on. For instance, community service, how we serve our youth, how we operate together as a club, etc. From these areas of interest and focus, you begin to develop your vision. This slide shows that the club that has a multi-year plan and focuses on areas that will make it vibrant, dynamic, and relevant. The presenter says, you're not alone in wanting to make a difference here in your club in this community. There are currently 150 districts participating in visioning around the world in such places like Sweden, Norway, Australia, New Zealand, and even the Cayman Islands. This has been going on since 2002, when it started with a club in Wisconsin. Each of these districts has trained facilitators helping their clubs envision a Rotary Club with better consistency, continuality, consensus, and planning on what they want to accomplish. And over that period of time, as some of the early clubs have achieved their plans, they've done a second and even a third visioning session to create a new plan for their club. What you want to get across at this point is that visioning isn't a one and done process, but it's a continual effort to make the club more dynamic, vibrant, and relative. Now, in the chat box, put a percentage anywhere from 0 to 10%, how important you think communication is within the club. Got all kinds of numbers there. All righty. Well, thank you for your responses. We believe it's important. Excuse me. So it's interesting, almost all of you said 100%. Some said a little less than that. For those of you who think that communication is very important, you're going to like this next slide. All right. Presenters say that the presenter says that the visioning process leads the attendees to a consensus of who they want to be and what they want to accomplish. Since the club leadership team is in attendance, the club develops continuality from one year to another, and this leads to consistency of purpose and focus. What ties this whole process together is communication. If there's no communication, then nothing gets done or achieved. Here, you want to get across the idea that visioning will help them have a multi-year plan that will help leadership take the club in a direction that their members will support. Also, that communication is an intricate part of being successful at accomplishing goals that have been generated. Are there any questions that I haven't answered so far?
Let's talk about the virtual facilitation type training. If you're doing a visioning on a virtual venue, the following information will be helpful for your team. We'll go over some of them about before the session, such as equipment. Having the equipment and effective equipment on a virtual training is paramount to your success as a facilitator. You cannot do a good job if you don't have the correct equipment, or if you're worrying about your equipment operating appropriately. Obviously, you downloaded Zoom on some device, or you would not have been at this meeting this morning. So we can check off that list of download Zoom. Check. Let's see what device you are using. In the chat, please identify the device you are using, whether it's a desktop computer, a laptop, an iPad, a tablet, or a phone. If y'all don't mind putting that in chat. Okay, got several coming up. If anyone is on an iPad, tablet, or phone, we want to let you know that you may want to borrow someone else's laptop. An iPad is okay, but definitely not a tablet or phone for being the facilitator. Now, a participant is okay for them to use, but as the key facilitator, you want one of these others. So let's check your equipment. Can your device support a virtual background? So give us a thumbs up if your device does. Let's pause on that. This is a virtual background. Yeah, there's a virtual background. Jones got one up there with a rotary one and the new theme. Bo's got, Barry's can, Barbara can, and various others. That's great. The reason is we want your device to support that is the IVFC will have a virtual background for you to use so you can be designated as a facilitator for a visioning event. It indicates that you're in charge. Next, if you're going to use a headset, please raise your hand in the reaction function if you're going to use a headset. I know Bo does quite often. Some will, some won't be using them. That's perfectly okay. But we need to be sure that the participants can hear you and you are able to hear the participants. Right now, think to yourself, does my device have consistent access to Wi-Fi? If it does not, then you may want to reconsider your commitment or find a different place to be when you facilitate, as good internet service is essential to keeping you online. When you are facilitating, choose an area in your home or office where your Wi-Fi signal is most reliable. Close all non-essential browser windows and software on your computer or device so your bandwidth is used for your Zoom platform. Sometimes having a direct connection between your computer and your modem or mobile access unit will help you have a better Wi-Fi connection, such as a landline, which looks like a large telephone connector. Disable the Wi-Fi connection on other devices to optimize your bandwidth. Our tech host will run any videos and do any screen sharing of PowerPoints, so you do not have to worry about taking bandwidth for those purposes. Set your other devices to do not disturb so that your session is not interrupted by text messages or email notifications. It is helpful if you use more than one monitor, however. It is not essential. If you use a second monitor, actually like I am, keep your handouts on one monitor and your Zoom platform with the webcam on your session plan on the second monitor. Are there any questions about your equipment and Wi-Fi? Please raise your hand in either the participant or reaction function. Now I will call on you to unmute and ask your question, or put your question in the chat box. So any questions at this point? On the raise hand, lower hand on the newer computers, you can raise it, but you do have to lower it. If it's the one that's like a wave, for instance, that after a short period of time, it'll stop itself, actually. All right, so let's let Tom lead us through some of the aspects of the Zoom feature. Tom?
Thanks, Glenn. So we are assuming that you know how to use the major functions of the online meeting software on Zoom: the camera, the microphone, the chat, the polls, reaction, raising your hand, lowering your hand, etc. If you don't, begin practicing and learning those major functions. Let me talk a little bit about appearance. So let me ask you this. What makes it important to have a professional appearance even on Zoom when you're the facilitator? Please raise your hand in the participant or the reaction function, and I'll call on you to unmute and respond. Joan?
So I just think it's respectful to everyone and yourself to come onto a meeting being prepared, looking professional, whether you wear your Rotary garb or whatever you have. That's it kind of sets the mood and the tone, because it shows everyone else that you feel it's really important. The activity is very important.
Well, thank you very much for that comment. Anybody else have a comment? Yes, Barbara?
There we go. I think you never know if someone is going to have speaker view on. And so I think that makes it even more important.
Thank you for that comment.
If you're enlarged, you need to be good.
Yes. Some of you might have seen that commercial with the coffee where the guy's sitting there in his boxers with a suit and tie on. You don't want to be in that position, okay? And we've seen that happen a couple of times. All righty. Well, thank you very much for your responses. Barb, if you'll lower your hand, that'll be great. Otherwise, I'll call on you later, okay? All righty. So, and you've given me some great reasons here. It's tempting just to throw on anything because it's only a Zoom training. However, it's a matter of respect for our participants that you dress professionally. Think about going to a job interview. How would you show up? That's the way you need to do these presentations as well. Try to wear colors that don't clash with the IVFC virtual background. Business casual or Rotary wear that looks professional would be appropriate. Just look well-groomed and professional. Sit a good distance away from the camera. Participants should be able to see your face, your shoulders, and some of your chest. Now, I'm going to check everyone to see how we look today. And so you want to be centered, okay? Glenn, there's nothing I can do for you, okay? So, you know what? You're looking marvelous, folks. You're looking marvelous. All right. By the way, you're supposed to have fun when you do this. Don't be a stick in the mud when you do these. All right. So I'm not asking anybody to adjust. The secret is that you want to have the same distance on the right and the left, and distance above your head. Don't look into the computer like this. That's terrible. Okay. Give yourself a good distance away. All right. So when presenting virtually, it's best to be sitting. For those of you who have a desk that pop up and allow you to stand, be sure the participants can see your face, your shoulder, and some of your chest. Now let's go check your lighting. There should be more light in front of you than behind you. If you appear dark, we would like you to move to a place that is well lit or get a lamp to shine on the front of you. Now we're going to check the lighting for everyone. And the lighting is really good. I mean, this is, that's the beauty of that. All right. Jim, you look a little bit dark background. I don't know what the lighting is for you. But the rest of you, it looks really good. All righty. I should have closed the door. You hear the phone ring, unfortunately. We'll talk about that. For those of you who use touch up your appearance feature, it will create a softer look that you can use with the webcam. And unfortunately, Glenn, I can't help your hair, and I certainly can't make mine brown. So the other thing we want to do is we want to reduce the amount of distractions. If you have a pet, and you probably just heard my phone ring in the background, I should have closed the door. Shame on me. Now I'm experiencing a bad behavior. So if you have a pet, please put what kind of pet and the pet's name in the chat box. For instance, if you have a cat named Kate, please list that. And I know about half of you have animals. Let's see what's in the chat.
There's Buddy. Oh, that's three. Jim has three cats. Yella. Name May. Joan does. Puppy is April by Ann. Oh, coming in April. Excuse me. No name. No mind. We got you.
All righty. Well, thank you. Thank you for your responses. And so Glenn read those off while we're doing that. So if you have a pet, please put it in another room. If you have a spouse, let him or her know that you will be facilitating so that you're not disturbed. If you have children, be sure to have someone watch them in another room or elsewhere while you're facilitating. Also, reduce background noises, so turn off your TV, the music, and notifications on your device. Now, Glenn will go through the materials.
Yeah. Print any documents you need, such as the writing exercise, the master plan, or the action plan, or have them open on your computer. Remember, you can hear the rustling of paper, so if you can use a second monitor for your documents, that would be ideal. If you need to print them, then be aware of the paper rustling. Be sure to check that in the tech rehearsal. Tom will talk about just getting comfortable. Unmute yourself, Tom.
There's the other secret, folks. Unmute yourself before you present. That's in the script. We'll cover that as well. Wow, I'm giving them a lot of bad examples, aren't I? All right, so pour yourself a glass of water. Use the facilities before you log on, as you will not be able to leave the session once it starts. Make sure that your chair has a good cushion so you're not wiggling around trying to be comfortable. Now, Glenn's going to ask you to identify yourselves.
Identify yourself. Edit your name on your Zoom platform so that you have your first and last name and facilitator. Similar to what we talked earlier, Rita Esterly, facilitator, or Glenn Vanderford, the IVFC facilitator. Notice that we had you do that at the beginning of the tech host overview as you entered. Set up the virtual background like we've got that has the IVFC, and it's been given to you, will be given to you electronically. This designates you as a facilitator. During the pre-check, finally log in 30 minutes before the session for a sound and video check with your technical host. Now, if there's any questions, or there are questions about what you do before the session begins, and if so, raise your hand in participant or reaction function, or just put your question in chat. Is there any questions at this point before we go into the aspect of during the sessions themselves? Any questions? Raised hands. Okay, Tom, if you would, then carry us through during the session itself.
Sure, thank you.
Right.
So once the Zoom platform, once you're on the Zoom platform, turn on your camera and sound. Check to see how you look in the square. Make sure that you have space on either side and above your head, with your face, shoulders, and some of your chest showing. Also check your lighting to make sure your face is lit. Check to make sure your virtual background is the IVFC virtual background. Have a copy of that virtual background saved on your desktop, so if you lose it, it'll be easily retrieved. Be sure to disconnect all your other devices from your Wi-Fi. Your technical host will have you do a sound check. Remember to keep your video on. Mute yourself when you are not speaking, and be sure to unmute yourself when it's your turn to facilitate. Put the words unmute at the beginning of where you are to facilitate on each of those sections so you don't forget. Now Glenn is going to set the stage.
Setting the stage. Remember, what you do at the very beginning will set the stage for how the rest of the session will function. So these are several things to consider. Number one, ask the tech host to let the participants in 5 minutes before the start time. The tech host will ask them to rename themselves and to show how to rename themselves. As a facilitator, when the participants start coming in, welcome them. Set your view to gallery. That can go up to 49 on each screen. Open the chat box pane and begin on time. Tell the tech host it's time to get started. Tom will carry through a technical overview. Tom?
Very good. So the technical host will go over the rules of Zoom. During this time, the participants will practice using the Zoom features to ensure optimum participation, and then the technical host will introduce the club president or the liaison. Go ahead, Glenn.
I'm sorry, thank you. In speaking, when you're facilitating, be sure you look into the camera while both speaking and listening to show you are actively engaged. Project your voice and enunciate your words so that you can easily be understood. Speak slowly so everyone can understand and hear you. Maintain a strong volume throughout the session. Read your script with enthusiasm and energy. Monitor your verbal reactions, such as tone of your voice to what the participants may say when they are requested to respond. Tom, talk about some of the nonverbal communications.
Thanks, Glenn. Be aware of your facial expressions, your posture and gestures. Make sure that they're all friendly and positive. Make good eye contact with me, which means that you look into the camera on your device to establish a perception of giving eye contact to each of your participants. Words are only 7% of communication. 93% of the communication is nonverbal. So the tone of our voice accounts for 38%. Our body language accounts for 55%. So be very aware of your nonverbal communications. Now, Glenn's going to talk about engaging.
Engaging. Yes, smile. Exhibit positive energy and enthusiasm to set the tone. When you're having fun and enjoying the experience, it is contagious to your participants. The scribe, when presenting the summary and synthesis, will especially need to exhibit lots of energy and enthusiasm. Talk about how many times we practiced on this, Tom.
Man, did we. So practice, and practice some more. You'll need to be very familiar with the content of the visioning process. You put the enthusiasm in and the energy. So read over the PowerPoint or the planner script at least 6 times so you flow fluently through the content. Better yet, go to your Zoom account. If you don't have one, you can get one that's free. Start a meeting and practice on the Zoom venue recording yourself so that you see what you look like as a facilitator. Now, Glenn's going to talk about responding to the chats.
Responses to chat. When a participant puts an idea in chat, then a facilitator will be reading the response. When you read the response, you need to state the person's first name and then their response. For example, Sally said XYZ. Sam says ABC. This gives the person recognition for his or her idea or thought. Notice how I mentioned earlier that when we read the response about your pet. Tom will talk about the adaptability.
So let's talk about adaptability. Sometimes, even though we plan the session out to the minute, things don't necessarily go to our time schedule. Just the other evening, we had to shorten the breakout session to 10 minutes from 12 minutes to accommodate the time schedule. So be prepared to be adaptive. Less adaptability will be needed when each of you respect your co-facilitator's concerns for time. So Glenn, what does that mean?
Correct. Respecting your co-facilitator is important. You have a time block. It is your job to stay within that time frame. If you don't, it is disrespectful to the other facilitators with whom you share the session. So those of you who want to get off script or go rogue, it is a matter of respecting the other facilitators. I say that so those who start the session, especially to keep it on time, so facilitators who have section at the end will have their fair share of time. Again, it is a matter of being sure the time frame is fair to all. Tom, put us in the ending aspect.
Sure. We're going to have a few minutes here. Again, you always want to start on time, you want to stay on time, and you want to end on time. It is really a matter of respect. We want to thank you for attending. We're going to have some questions, a session right after this, what we've done, and Glenn will handle that. Just realize that you automatically go back to the general session when we're finished. So Glenn, what kind of questions do we have out there?
Yeah, we just want to open it up at this time. If there are any questions about before the session or during the session that you might have about the presenter. Any questions, just raise your hand or I'll call on you and we'll unmute at this point. Any questions, anybody? I'm going to put you back in gallery view. We got a
Joanne. Joanne has a question, and then we'll go to Barbara.
So, so I thought one thing I've been having a lot of trouble with because I've been presenting a lot lately is just managing all the shared screens and videos and trying to talk and do everything at once. And I've failed a few times in some of the past few meetings I've been in just to try to do it all. So you're suggesting to maybe have 2 screens. So I think that sounds pretty good. And I was interested too in what you said about practicing. So you can actually get on your Zoom platform and practice.
Correct.
How do you do? You can actually get on there and record yourself, or?
Okay, we can. I'll answer both questions. I actually have two monitors. We got the laptop right here in front of me that's hooked to Zoom. So that's what you're seeing me through. That's where I shared the PowerPoint presentation, those first 10 slides before I opened it back up to, let's say, speaker view or gallery view like now. Behind my laptop is my desktop monitor that actually has the 12-page script that Tom and I have gone through. So I can just scroll and look at it. I've got it placed right here above the camera where I'm kind of looking at it and not looking off to the side. I'm actually looking right over the camera. So it does look like, hopefully it looks like I'm talking more to you instead of solely reading the script. Now, two things. Tom and I, for instance, on 3 occasions did practice where I sent him a Zoom invitation because it was 2 of us going on with it. And actually, one time we even had Rita, a third person. But so we practiced 3 times going into it. But now you can, with like Tom mentioned earlier in the Zoom section, you can get a free Zoom account and you can actually just sign in for Zoom without inviting anybody, like Tom, or if you want to invite Nancy or Michael or whoever, to come in, or John, to see how it looks and practice that way. And then you actually see how you're setting, whether you're sitting, straight or where your lighting is appropriate, things of this sort, that sort of thing.
Okay.
All right.
Barbara, you had a question there too, Barbara.
Well, I did. Will there be notes under the slides, like presenter notes?
Yes, there are notes, and then that you can follow, just like the old in-person one. So whether you use it as an in-person session or virtually, there is the note. Now, what we have used is much more notes for you today. We'd be glad to share that as well. We only had the slides only went 10 slides, which is the standard PowerPoint presentation. And then we went on through a script that just talked about, before the session took place and then during the session. And there is a script, and that type of information will be shared with you and can be retrieved off the IVFC website. Pat Cross, how about you, Pat?
I work with one monitor, and the way I have done that is I can split my screen on my monitor so that I have, on my left-hand side, I have everybody in the gallery view or this, slide, whatever's going on. And on my right-hand side, I have my script loaded, and then I leave a narrow space in the middle that when the chat comes up, the chat fits into there. So that way I can look directly at my camera, all the time when I'm speaking. But you can do that with one monitor by splitting the screen. So that's just my solution.
Thank you very much.
That's great. John, I don't know if you want to, John Cordelli has joined us. He's our main tech person for that. And that's really an outstanding explanation, Pat. John, do you want to add anything on that?
I'm thinking you're catching it all. It's really remarkable. The piece I'm seeing is, if you notice my head, is some of you might be about like this. And if you can just adjust your camera or such so that you're just have a little bit of room above it, that is a better look. And then anything that has lighting behind you is going to be like Barbara, you have a window behind you that's really bright. And if that shade was just closed, I have one in my room too, that would help. Having the lighting in front is the biggest piece that's helpful there. And then the last piece, which is where you had left off, is there's different clever ways, as Pat had mentioned, how you can adjust your screen so that whatever it is that you're reading is either just below, so you could actually take your Zoom account and tighten it all the way up to the top and put a script underneath it. You can use other monitors, but find a strategy to get it so that you're really looking into the camera when you're speaking with people. And at the same time, we keep it warm and friendly. And I love the banter between Tom and Glenn. You can tell they practice together because they have a true friendship that shows here, as you would in your clubs and your districts in zones. So that would be my addition.
Charles?
Yes, in regards to virtual backgrounds, I noticed on some virtual backgrounds you can get distortion of the person, etc. So when you look at the vision background, has it been sort of optimized to minimize that, or is there something we need to do on our computer to address that?
May I answer that one?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, absolutely. So what's happening here, Charles, great question, and is that when we have just a background and we don't have a green screen, then when your head moves back and forth, you're going to see the movement around it. So when you look at Tom, when you look at Glenn, they do not have green screens, and so you notice some of the movement around it. Now, I'm going to turn my background off just so that you can see it, because I've got a green screen. Okay, so you can see that there's a green screen here in my office, and I've got light in front of me, and I can click a box that says I have a green screen. So I just want to demonstrate this for you really quickly, because whoops, didn't want to go. Okay, this is where I want to go. Okay, so I'm back, and now watch my hands here. See this? With a green screen, everything stays three-dimensional. So I pick up my coffee cup, it's still in it. Whereas if I had picked up something, it would be out of it. These green screens you can get for under $100, and placed behind you. And then you just click one box in Zoom, and now you've got the ability to have a really clean, crisp experience. I will say, lastly, people will forgive video before they'll forgive audio. And so audio, if you can have optimal audio, I went ahead and I'm using an external microphone now. I got a Yeti microphone, and it just deepens it. But that's a way to improve. Newscasters will say that as well. I've got coaches in the speaking world where, but we can improve these things with a small budget. Thanks, Glenn.
So Richard has a question there.
Yeah, Richard?
Yes, to Pat Cross, I was curious as to how you do the split screen. Is that a Zoom function or your computer function?
Okay, that's in. Well, go ahead, Pat, if you want to answer it.
I assume it's because of my monitor. I was able to split my monitor. Somebody who knows more technical information than me, is that what you're referring to? How I was able to put all the different things on my monitor?
Yes.
Yeah, John, what he's asking Pat, and how Pat described a while ago, she has got all three on one monitor, whether is it a desktop or a laptop? It's more likely.
I'm using a laptop.
Oh, a laptop even, okay.
Yeah,
she has the Zoom on one side, and then her script on the other with the chat
space in the middle.
Yeah, but when you put it on Zoom, you can go to the side and minimize it in a sense manually. Besides up in the top corner where you can either go full or just reduced a little bit. Here you can reduce it manually as well.
I drag it manually to the left and then to the right.
And then she did the same thing with her script, which is either a Word document or whatever she's PowerPoint she's looking at. And then, of course, it does that with the chat. The chat would be in the middle.
Glenn, Roger's here, and he says it's a feature of Windows 10.
Okay.
He's my tech support.
Gotcha. That's a good tech couple. I tell you, Barbara down here, I experienced and saw Barbara Hosier there in District 5100. She and their district did an outstanding visioning event not too long ago, and they tag team. It really wasn't the presenter, which we're in now. It was more of the scribing, but how they did an outstanding job. And I really encourage y'all to be sure and go to the scribe breakout if you can later this afternoon at the 12:30 Central or 2:30 Central. But that explains how Barb and them utilize, like SurveyMonkey, our Word documents. It really saves a ton of time. But with all this, other questions you may have.
Well, Glenn, I've got some questions that were left over from one of our presentations last week. So, is it okay for us to change presenters when doing the at the event, at the visioning event?
All right. Usually the presenter presentation right off the bat is only about 10 minutes, but so more than likely one person will do it as they've done it in the in-person or even now the virtual one. You could change it if you want, as Tom and I did more so, tag teaming other topics since it lasted more like 40 minutes or so. But in terms of a standard presentation. It's about, 10 slides, no more than 20 minutes, something like that to do. So usually one person for speed would go through that. And again, it's got the script on there. Other questions there?
Yeah, I want to just make a comment. One of the suggestions that we will make, and Glenn and I have done this together, but you want to do a practice before you ever do a live presentation in front of any club. You want to have everybody know their role, especially with virtual, so everybody knows what they're doing. And then you want to make sure you get on 30 minutes early just to review, make sure that all the bugs are worked out. That's important. One of the other questions that came up in the other session was, how long does the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation at the event typically last? So Glenn, you want to answer that?
Yeah. I'd segment about 20 minutes. I don't think you'll go that long. You probably can run through it 10. The great thing about we have discovered, and as we've done several pilots here in Heart of America and other districts in North America, it's the virtual aspect actually sped things up. Now, instead of a 4-hour in-person event, we've done it more in 2 sessions. I would allow probably 2 hours, up to 2:15, 2:30 for the first session. You'll end up breaking it off at the second survey monkey type voting, after you vote the first time and then send them away. Then you come back for about an hour and a half session, either 2 days later or 5 days later, whatever you choose. You have that predetermined though, and they use the same invitation to come back with, so you don't have to send that out, let's say once. But and then that second session is only about an hour and a half long. That's where they get into the summary, the synthesis, the exciting part, and then they actually get into the practice of the master plan, action plan, into that vision to success. So it's really carrying them further. But again, answer your question, the PowerPoint presentation is about 20 minutes, no more than 20 minutes, and it's scripted. Other questions?
Well, I have a quick story for you with the time that we got remaining. I got to listen to Willie McGee, who is an outfielder for the Cardinals. And when he came to the Cardinals, Whitey Herzog was the manager. And what he asked Willie to do is to go out in the outfield, and when they had batting practice, to go out and field the balls. So, and the reason that he did that is to guarantee that he would get to see a ball come off a lot more times than what he did at a game. And he said, I did that. Willie says, I did that my whole career. And if you ever watched Willie McGee, never did a ball ever get past him. So it's a secret of doing, you practice like you're going to perform, and you perform like you practice. And that is really an important part of this. If you're going to look good, you're going to really have to work at this. And again, can you make mistakes? Sure. The attendees typically don't know. They have no idea if you mess up. That's the beauty. You're the experts in the room. So, and believe me, we have blown a few things. And I think I've done 45 visioning events, and we miss some things, but they won't know. That's the beauty of but be prepared, and also be prepared that if something goes wrong with these scripts, that you actually have the script in front of you. So if Glenn missed something or I missed something, the other person would automatically pick that up. They'd be able to pick that up and run with that. So I want to thank you very much. Glenn and I want to thank you for attending, and this is fun. We enjoy doing this, and as you can tell, we've worked together in the past.
Again, we really appreciate y'all being here.